And we are live. Welcome to this week's episode of MicroConf On Air. I'm your host, Rob Walling, the Q&A specialist, according to producer Xander, who likes to mix that up. If you're missing out on these live streams and seeing the video and all the clever stuff Xander comes up with, you're missing out. MicroConFonair.com every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We live stream for 30 minutes and we cover topics related to building and growing ambitious SaaS startups that bring us freedom and purpose and allow us to value and maintain healthy relationships. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I'm excited to once again be live streaming with my gorgeous library behind me and a great Minneapolis lake in front of me. So it's already snowed twice this year, although most of it still is melting. And US Thanksgiving is next week. So I believe we won't be doing a live stream next week, and we'll see you back again in early December after this. Today's topic is question and answer. We've had so many good episodes of Q&A, and they seem to be really popular. There's a lot of engagement. I've answered a few questions. I've had some folks come on and join me, and we want to just dip our toe in the water further and figure out how to make things as relevant as possible for you, the audience members, and perhaps you, the listener, if you're listening to this on the MicroConf podcast as well. And so we're going to be toying around with things over the next few weeks, few months, and bringing some guests on to help, kind of categorize or shrink the word I'm looking for is to kind of narrow the focus of some of the questions down to the expertise of a particular founder or subject matter expert. So to kick us off this week with that in mind, I would love to welcome Matt Wensing to the show. He's the founder of Summit, which is usesummit.com, which is a financial modeling platform. I call it a forecasting platform for SaaS applications. Matt is the co-host of the Out of Beta podcast. He hosts that with Peter Sum. If you're not listening to it, you should check it out. It's two mostly bootstrap founders having week-to-week conversations for about 45 to 60 minutes about what they're up to as makers and managers. And Matt is the founding CEO of Rispulse, which was acquired in 2019. He enjoys writing code and essays about growth and new forms of capital. Mr. Wensing, thank you for joining me on the show today. Uh-oh. Producer Xander, what's our issue? So Matt's muted.
There we go. My issue was sir. I had to click the microphone button. Hey, good to be here, Rob.
I do that all the time. Yeah, man. Thanks. You got a cool little purple mic cover there. I'm digging that.
On brand.
All in fashion. He's got his it's got the Joker color theme. So we already have questions coming through for you, man. This is good. I'm excited. First question from Noah Bragg. So if you want to ask questions, please do. We'll be fielding them for about the next 23 minutes. And MicroConf On Air is the channel in the MicroConf Connect Slack. If you're not in MicroConf Connect, head to microconfconnect.com to sign up. So first question is from Noah Bragg. He says, Matt Wensing, when are you going to start hiring a team for Summit? I know it's not, but you're like, dude, slow down.
That's pretty funny. Just top shelf right away. Yeah, well, maybe I can answer this in a way that's a little bit more helpful if I think about my reasoning here. And so I was actually answering this question for an investor yesterday. And I think it really comes down to, when do I feel like some part of what I'm doing has effectively been, you might say, de-risked or turned into something that somebody else could do in a way where I'm just really confident that their time and the money being spent on them by the company is well spent, right? Where you don't have that doubt. And I am definitely stretched thinner and thinner, but not quite there yet. I would say, early next year is my guesstimate for that. I do feel that there are now things in the business where, hey, I've figured this out. I know how this works. You just got to do it. Somebody just needs to turn this wheel every day. And it would be totally worth it for somebody to do that. I just have to work on the resources now to staff that position. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you make a great point here. I often think about it as two things. One is, do I have the budget? And two, do I have tasks or projects that someone else could do that it doesn't require essentially a founder or a founder level, like an owner level mindset? And that's how you broke it down. And early next year. It's a good answer, man.
I hope.
Second question, Dave Wasmer. I think it's a little jokey question, but I'll read it anyways. He says, Matt Wensing, have you and Peter Stum considered changing the name of your podcast to Out of Metaphors? Definitely the most metaphor-dense startup podcast I listen to, and I love it. Great stuff. Love listening each week.
That's funny. We haven't, but I've been accused of stuffing many metaphors into things before, so that's not the first time I've heard that positive complaint or commentary. So yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm glad. Thanks for listening. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, metaphors are good for kind of framing things that may be too complex or just thinking about them in a different way, right?
Yeah, actually, real quick thought. I think there's a book which I didn't grab. I really should have given everybody's feedback, but just reading a little bit of it, it was basically saying that we can only learn through metaphors or relationships to things we already know. And if you want to really dive into the current worlds, I mean, that's what positioning, I think that's what April Dunford and positioning and all that is all about, right? You're effectively saying, let me help you triangulate what the heck I'm doing and what I'm talking about. So yeah, you're going to see that all over the place.
Yeah, I like that thought. I was going to bring positioning in too. I remember talking to a founder and we were chatting through their website. I went to the website and the H1 said something very vague of like, we help you send better email, or I don't remember what it was, but something like that. And I was like, so are you like Gmail, or are you like cold email outreach like Yesware, or are you like MailChimp, or are you like, and what I realize is all I'm doing is trying to relate you to a category that's already in my head. I know there's an email client, or, and I know that there is cold email. I know that there's warm email. I know that there is marketing email. I know, and that's what positioning comes back to. And that's how metaphors help us, right? Is how do I link this to something already in my own head?
Yeah. And very concretely, I think the integrations that your product requires and the integrations that your product can support these days are like the shortcut to people figuring that out in a way. It's like, oh, you read from my Stripe and you feed into my whatever, like instant sort of positioning in a way, at least you're technical. So that is another way to almost self-diagnose or help others diagnose your positioning is even if you don't have the best words, it's like, oh, if you integrate with these three tools, you're not any of those, but you enhance those. I think that's definitely something that I've been thinking about with Summit.
Yeah, you had a cool description of Summit, I believe, on the first time you came on Startups for the Rest of Us, where you said Barometrics, ChartMogul, and ProfitWell essentially look backwards. They're your analytics or your metrics. And Summit looks forwards, looks ahead. And I was like, it's forecasting, right? That's why I say that. But I know it's more than that now. It's modeling and all that. But that's that hit me very poignant because I'm not an MBA. I'm not a sophisticated, startup founder in that respect, but I did know my numbers and I do know what forecasting is and means. So I thought that was a nice way to explain it. All right. Follow up from Noah Bragg. He says, at what point do you think you will be to the growth stage with Summit?
Oh man.
Hard to predict, huh?
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at the business is I'm trying to build, and I talk about this on the podcast, I'm trying to build a company that is essentially a series of processes, right? And what I mean by that is the process of bringing on a new user, onboarding them, getting them into the product, getting them to activate. We know the steps, right? The pirate metrics, if you will, the R, but there's that kind of classic funnel, but now we're learning, they're not just linear funnels. Actually, like once people are really excited and using the product, like there's upsells and referrals, and it's a whole loop. To answer the question then using that framework, I think it'd be more about when will kind of the whole diagram of the business be complete enough where growing one part of it is actually where that's the next high leverage point, right? Because if you have a funnel and there's giant holes in it, growth really hopefully means just fixing the giant holes, like completing the bucket in the first place or completing the diagram. I think it really comes down to when is that initial loop, or when is that initial diagram complete, so that you can go, okay, everything's at least a 1, not a 0. We have conversions, we have this. Now we're going to focus on growth. Well, where's the where's the bottleneck? Where are the constraints? And like that to me is the definition of growth phase. It's when you realize we're not just turning things on for the first time, which is what a founder does. We're growing them from a 1 to a 5 to a 10 to 100, right? And I'm not there yet. I've still got zeros in several places that I need to fix. So
right. When
next year sometimes the hope.
Yeah. And that's the thing to think about is like in this early stage, typically it's whether you believe that product market fit is a thing or exists or whatever, there is a moment where you kind of have a product that really starts resonating with people and that people are really anxious to pay for, even if it's a small subset.
Mm-hmm.
Before that point, before product market fit, it is a lot of what you're saying, which is fixing leaks in the bucket. It's looking at a funnel and saying, oof, that number is it's not there. And you need to drive just enough traffic so that you can tell where the leaks are, but really know more, because you don't want to burn people out on your product and be like, Summit is like, it's not that great, or whatever. You don't want that to be in people's head. I mean, I know that the age-old thing of, hey, if you're not embarrassed by your MVP or your first version, then you launch too late. Yes and no. Like there's... You know what I mean? Like there's trade-offs to that.
For sure. I think the thing that people, it's not the next feature, but it is the minimal set of features, plural, right? And it's like Summit doesn't integrate with accounting systems yet. Wait, it's a financial modeling product that doesn't integrate with QuickBooks or Xero? Like people are using it, but they're almost swimming against the stream, right? Like, which is a good sign. People are willing to use it even though it's missing this giant thing. So part of me goes, well, once I have that, then there's a lot more confidence that the wheel is complete, the circle's complete, and you can focus on growth. Until you have that, people show up and they're like, well, how do I integrate my blank? Oh, you can't. Oh, okay. Well, when are you going to have that? And that's how it's not maybe ready yet, is people are asking you for the missing thing, and it's so obvious that you should have it, but you don't yet. So, yeah.
All right. Next question. This one is from Tremaine Tyler, and it's a little bit of a long one, so follow me on this. He says, my product is a social intranet software, sort of like Microsoft Teams / Facebook. Microsoft Teams / Facebook combined. Okay. So, but it seems like it's B2B. A lot of my competitors make it very difficult for their customers to sign up, do not give free trials or freemium. You have to fill out a form for a demo to get signed up. Sounds like enterprise software. Is there some sort of hidden advantage to being difficult to get started with? Is there an advantage to weeding people out, or what exactly is the goal there?
Yeah, there are trade-offs, right? The famous, original play in this space was Yammer, which was a David Sachs company who they got acquired for $1 billion by, I forget who, but Yammer, David Skock, I think, was the investor. But anyway, they did social for enterprise, and people were signing up for it. It was essentially like an internal Twitter. So if you haven't looked at them, I would. But it was definitely a freemium play, and this was like 2005, 6, 7, somewhere in there, the advent of freemium, like in the early days. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, look at this bottoms up adoption that they're getting. Like 500 people at Microsoft have signed up for this Yammer thing, and they're all using it. And now to get it under control, corporate needs to buy an enterprise license to essentially make sure the network's being managed properly, that, you're, it's being said, it's being shared, like all of those enterprise features. And so in that sense, like something social, like a Slack or a Yammer or one of those tools, I think really helps you get that enterprise deal, at least if that's your pitch. Like, hey, you can't just have this thing growing like a weed internally. Like, you need to get this under control. Do you know what files are being put out there on the internal social network? But the drawback is, you got to do a lot better lead qualification and farming of those, right? You got to get good at looking through, I've had 2,000. So I'm Summit is freemium. I've had 2,000 signups since July 6th, I want to say. 2,000 registered users means I can't manually go through those anymore and sell them, right? Like the trade-off is now I have to invest in product analytics and engagement analytics to figure out, you have to do product qualified leads. So maybe I would summarize by saying the trade-off is now you need to do product qualified leads. The advantage of being high friction is you're not doing product qualified leads, you're doing sales qualified. So you're having those conversations and making sure that people are a good fit and all that stuff. So I think the question just becomes like, when do you want to eat that cost of qualification? are you okay delaying it and doing it in product? Or do you need that feedback in those conversations? First of all, because they might be a gold mine of insights. But second of all, you don't have the resources to support all those people, or you don't want to waste, you don't have the product analytics in place to really know who's qualified without a conversation. Like, just think through how you're going to qualify people, I think would be my way of making that decision. And hopefully it grows like crazy either way and you're okay. A rapid adoption of a product like that will cover a multitude of sins. so good luck.
Yeah. So people were chiming in saying Microsoft acquired Yammer. So
there you go.
You were saying
okay, cool.
Yeah, you're right. It was years ago for 1.2 billion. One thought on that, and then I want to ask a follow up to it. Is I see that if your competitors are all not listing pricing and gating and doing the enterprise sales process, that's either an opportunity for you to do the opposite, or it's a trap to do the opposite, and they've already tried it. And that's what I would try to figure out. Is sometimes, like, I've tried to be, you can be too clever. And I've tried to do that before, where I'm going to zig when they're zagging, and I ate shit, and it was the wrong way to do it. And they had tried it before. So if you can figure out, if they've already tried it, and if there's a reason. Now, a lot of times people raise bucket loads of venture capital, and they have to go up market because now they have to get really big, really fast. And if you're a bootstrapper and you want to get to 10K, 50K a month, whatever, there may be a really nice opportunity for you. But that's
what's fun? Internet Wayback Machine is your friend. So load up somebody else in that space and look at their marketing and pricing pages and how they've evolved. And you'll be able to tell if they ever tried what you're thinking about. And, after they raised a bunch of money, they went to what they're doing now. Like, you can almost find a correlation. Internet Wayback Machine, I think, is an underused asset for that kind of stuff. Zigging and zagging,
Yep. And here's another, this is a pro tip just between you and me, Matt, because nobody else is listening. But so something I did back in the day, I was trying to figure out how to improve our sales process with Drip. And so I found like 3 or 4 ex-sales people from big competitors of ours, let's say Marketo or Infusionsoft or Pardot. And they were big marketing automation. And they were used to be salespeople for them and no longer were. And I messaged them on LinkedIn and I said, I run this company, it competes with your former employer. I just have like 30 minutes of your time to just ask questions. I figured I'd get like a 1 out of 10. Every one of them scheduled a call with me because they're salespeople. That's and awesome. They want to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at the end, some of them were like, hey, maybe I might want to work for you later. Or like, they were all like networking, right?
Totally.
And that's what salespeople are good at. So I offered to compensate, like, hey, I'll compensate you as a consultant if you want. None of them took me up on it. And one guy walked me through the entire, he's like, within 15 minutes of a lead submitting their form, like, we would be on the phone calling them, like they were warmly. And so he walked me through this whole thing, and I learned a bunch about affiliates and how they were using them and blah, blah, blah. So that's another thing you can do if the Wayback Machine doesn't work for that competitor in particular.
Yeah, that's great.
Is there anyone who doesn't work for him anymore?
That's awesome. Yeah. Good hack.
All right. Hope that was helpful, Tremaine. Feel free to ask a follow-up if you have one. Okay. So this one from Pablo Fernandez. I don't have any insight into this, Matt, so feel free if you don't either. But he says, how do you think non-American startups should forecast currency fluctuations if most companies are in the U.S. paying in dollars?
Yeah, that's. I have thought about it, and currency is a setting in Summit for financial modeling, and I remember putting in the exchange rates for that. And people can set, but then, there's extra complication of, okay, now I'm ingesting Stripe data. Every payout has its own currency. So I've definitely thought about this. And actually, RiskPulse was a risk factors company. So currency risk, quick way to think about risk in general is risks you can control and risks you can't. And then, risks that are external or internal. And so if you want to do the classic kind of consultant quadrant thing, there's internal risks you can control, then there's internal risks you can't, right? So the second one is like the entire office comes down with mono, right? Like, can't really control it. You can try to mitigate it. It's internal. It's not going to affect other companies. Currency risk is external risk that you cannot control. You have no ability to control that. So the best thing you can do, but you can't predict it. Like, it's a thing that's known about. This is not like completely unpredictable. So I think what you'd want to do, this is super dangerous, right? Because there is no precedent for hyperinflation per se. Like, there is, but the question is like, how paranoid do you want to be is sort of the initial gut check. And in that case, you'd want to look at they're paying in dollars. Well, if dollars are strong, that's a good thing for you because the exchange rate is going to be in your favor, right? And you're paying people locally, right? So that's a good thing. I think what you'd want to do is just look at the future and look at history and ask yourself, like, what level of, how much risk can you stomach as a founder? And know that you will not be able to predict this thing when it happens. It could be a week from now. So knowing you can't time it, how much risk can you stomach? And geez, when you do that, it actually sounds a lot like, what's your approach to investing in public equities, like, or Bitcoin? Like, how do you feel about those things, right? And you can almost look at that and say, and I don't know how much control you have, but if you're a bootstrapper, personal and private are pretty mixed. Like, I would almost take the same sort of gut check there and say, yeah, I really don't do well with a sudden dramatic drop in my in that, right? To sleep well at night, I need X, right? And maybe that then can relate back to something you've done before. And then the rest is, no one in the world can do the rest of the homework assignment, which is like now predict what it's going to be. I don't know, it's tough.
Yeah. I think this ties into a conversation I was having with in Tiny Seed Slack with some founders. Someone said, how many months of payroll or how many months of company expenses do you keep in the bank? Should I? The question was, how much should I? And the answer, of course, is it depends a little bit, like you're saying. Depends a little bit on your risk tolerance. And I was throwing out, like, I think 2 months is like, that's pretty tight and scary for me. And 6 months starts to feel like that's a hell of a lot. Like, as a SaaS app, 6 months of all expenses, like, we would have to hit a depression, for you to truly need 6 months. So somewhere out there, but someone said, like, I have 18 months of my monthly expenses. And it's like, okay, so that's where you want to start reinvesting, whether it's in hiring or whether it's in more ads or a developer or whatever. But it depends, but there's a reasonable range, right? It's not, the range is not 1 to 20 months. It's probably 2 or 3 up to, I'd say 6. And if you're venture funded, it's a different story, but mostly bootstrap is, I think, in that range.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So I actually have a question for you about if you're still in MicroConf On Air channel, please, feel free to toss another one in. It's about freemium. And because this is a question that comes up a lot. Should I try freemium? Does freemium work? And of course, we know it depends. It works in certain instances and there's certain criteria and such. You've basically had a free plan, I believe, since you launched, and you still do, but you've made a lot of adjustments to it and you've moved the free line around. Do you have any nice learnings that you've had from that? You've now had 2 products with freemium plans, to be honest, because Risk Pulse was free for a while with no paid plan, then you implemented it in a first paid plan,
So I think the reason to go free at the beginning, and this could be in early access. Let's say you're in early access. I actually, let me just talk about how I've operated and I've learned, basically. So this is not gospel, and we know this, right? But just want to preface that anyway. The reason I like free at the beginning is because it allows me to not put an artificial governor or throttle on learnings or insights. I know that I need feedback from as many people as possible to make this product incredible. And to figure out who my segment is, who am I even serving? Like, what is the opposite of freemium, right? Or free? It's having a price. Well, how do you have a price? Well, you know your value. How do you know your value? Well, you got to know who you're serving. Well, how do you know So it's kind of this vicious cycle of, like, in the earliest days, it's, I realized you could put a number on it. And I think that's probably the fallback positioning is like, I know it's not the right number, but I'm going to put a number on it. Well, I could get philosophical and say, what is it? So what are you putting the number on? Seats? Why? So I've always been free in the beginnings. With Storm Pulse, we were actually free for too long. And our desire to be free, our appetite for being free, I think, exceeded the market size. So here's a thought experiment. Like, if you're doing freemium, as Patrick Campbell says, to own the leads, right? If you get to the point where you own all the leads, freemium is not really doing you much more now, if you will. Like, if there's only 1,000 people ever going to buy this product and you have 1,000 free users, like, your focus now should be on monetizing those users, right? Because you've exhausted the market. So it is possible to get ahead of yourself and give too much away and essentially lose sight of the benefit, which is I want to have this really wide funnel and I want to have the email addresses of everybody, right? As I like to say though, like you're always going to have a free plan. So it might be a newsletter you're on the hook to send every month. It might be a podcast you're producing. It might be, we all are giving out free content and samples all the time. So my approach with Summit has been, I'd rather work on product than work on, and I do a podcast, but I'd rather work on product than work on, a marketing website, these materials, like I've just chosen that as my marketing material because I feel like I'm really comfortable in product and I can deliver a great product experience and it's in the same headspace as the rest of what I'm doing. So I basically chose product as the free offering. Sales, when you have a sales team and they're talking to people on the phone, that is not free. And the marginal cost of a person being on the phone with somebody to try to negotiate a deal is very expensive. So when I look at non-freemium plays, I just remind people, like if you're a bootstrap and you have very limited resources, it's a lot cheaper to give a little bit of product away for free than to hire a salesperson or even to use your own time. Like just at least think about that cost structure of like, oh yeah, you're right. This 16 hours I spent on the phone with sales prospects this week wasn't free, right? I gave it away for free, but it cost me something. I'd rather have thousands of people or hundreds of people using the product and not be in those high touch conversations, at least right now as the founder, because I just think product is higher leverage. So all I can say is like, realize that in order to get people's attention in 2020 and 2021, you're going to give something away for free. If it's not product, what is it? And what is that costing you? Right. And be honest with yourself. Like, is that actually free? Because it's probably not. Everything costs something. So yeah.
Yeah. Very cool, sir. We have one question to wrap us up because we're at time, but it's from Patrick Foley. He says, easy plug, what does Summit do? At what stage in my business is it for me? I don't get the answer to both of these questions from your landing page, winky face. So
yeah,
I know.
I know. The new landing page is coming in Q1
cool.
As I finish the wheel that we talked about. So yeah, easy plug. If you've ever sat down and tried to build a financial forecast for your business in a spreadsheet and you've experienced the joy of doing that and the benefit, which there is, but then you've also experienced the pain and frustrations of having to maintain it, update it, or even worse, tell somebody else what all the numbers mean, then you understand where Summit fits in. So Summit is a replacement for that Google Sheet or that Excel sheet that you would otherwise build from scratch. If you have a spreadsheet like that already, I'm happy to look at what you've got and try to translate it into the Summit world. But really where I want to help founders is get started on that journey of forecasting. And I will say this, the more I've thought about it, financial modeling properly as a CFO does is a significant undertaking. We don't start there, but you know what you start with? You start with expense forecasting, which is budgeting. You start with goal setting, which is forecasting. You start with product management, which is predicting the return on investing in product. So the funny thing is, like in your mind, or scenario planning, what if we run out of runway? So I would actually say this, as a founder, you're probably forecasting in 4 ways already. Summit is a way of doing that in a product instead of in your head. And I'd love for people to try it out.
Awesome. We have another question, but I'm going to point them to our recent conversation on startups for the rest of us because I think it answers it. But Brendan Andrade says, when moving from Summit V1 to V2, was there a key insight that drove you toward a more flexible tool, or was it more that your refactor led you naturally in that direction? And Matt and I dug into that as episode, I believe it's 516 of Startups for the Rest of Us. You can just search for Wensing on the website. And Noah Bragg says, in closing, really like how you're thinking about free plan, new way to think of it for me. Got to spend something on marketing, so might as well be product if that's what you're good at. So, sir, Matt Wensing, thanks so much for joining me. Folks want to keep up with you.
Rob. Thanks, guys.
Matt Wensing on Twitter, and of course, use summit.com. There's a free plan, so you can sign up and check it out if you want to. Thanks again.
That's right.
Man.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks for joining me today, me and Matt. That was a great conversation. I'm searching around for my outro. Oh boy. All right. Too many windows open. Join us next week at 1 p.m. Eastern time, same place. Thank you so much for hanging out. And thanks to Basecamp and Hey and Stripe, all three of them. They're our headline partners for this year with MicroConf. And I look forward to chatting with you. Oh, it won't be next week because of Thanksgiving, but the week after, I will see you with Mr. Lars Lofgren for more Q&A.